Okay, so I just ate lunch, so hopefully I don't have food stuck in my teeth. But if I do, then let's move on. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today's video, we are going to be doing my February wrap-up. So we're just going to go through everything I read for the month of February. But before we get started, I will go ahead and plug my Instagram. Down below, I have both my personal and my Bookstagram, and I've been really dedicated to my Bookstagram. So it would mean a lot to me if you guys would go and check that out. And with that being said, also don't forget to subscribe to my channel, turn on notifications so you guys can be updated every single time I upload. And that is pretty much it. We can go ahead and get started with the video. Also, I would like to mention that this might be the last day that you guys see my hair this long because I'm chopping a good amount of hair. But yeah, that's just something that I really wanted to say. Okay. So this month I ended up reading 7 books, which I've kind of come to the conclusion that that is sort of the normal amount of books that I can get through in a month, and without feeling pressured and enjoying every book, you know, not rushing through them or anything. I will say by saying this was not a good reading month, not quantity wise but quality wise. The books that I read this month were not the best, so keep that in mind. All right, let's get started. The first book that I read was When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole, and I picked this up because it was the Literally Dead book club pick, and it is the book club run by or hosted by Books and Lala, and I was excited because it's sort of a thriller mystery, and that's just really up my aisle. It's something that I really like reading about. And in this book we are basically following Sydney, who is this African-American woman who has been divorced, and she went back to move in with her mom, or at her mom's house, in the neighborhood that she basically grew up in. And as she lives there, she starts noticing that a lot of her old-time neighbors are moving, and that a lot of white people are starting to move into the neighborhood. And it touches upon the subject of gentrification, which was really interesting to read about. And it's sort of her trying to figure out what is happening. This is the way the book is pitched. It's her trying to figure out where her old neighbors are going to and what is happening to this neighborhood. And we are also following, I believe his name is Theo, yeah. Sorry. We are following Theo, who just moved into the neighborhood, and he is also pretty interested in the history of the neighborhood and ends up helping Sydney out in digging on what's happening. I ended up giving this book a 3 stars out of 5, mostly because to me it didn't really seem much of like a thriller. It just seemed a bunch of information kind of thrown at you, a bunch of history about the neighborhood, and maybe the last 50 to 80 pages were thriller-ish, but most of it really wasn't. I was interested in what was happening, but I never felt really attached to the characters, unfortunately, and I just thought that the thriller was just not there. Also, the ending was really abrupt. It seemed like it was like bam, 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 and the end. It was just really rushed, and I wished it had, I don't know, I wish it had given more like mystery vibes. It was just not my favorite. I did end up giving it a 3 because it does touch on an important subject, and really like rude and awful things happen to Sydney because she's black, and it's hard to read about that, and so that's why it's a 3. But mystery wise, it wasn't a mystery. Okay, let's go. Next up we have The Wrong Family by Tarryn Fisher, and this was a book troop pick by Gabby Reads. Yeah, I think that's her YouTube channel. Gabby Reads. She is the host of the book troupe, and thus was a pick. I ended up giving this book a... Actually, let me talk about what it's about. So in this book, we are basically following two perspectives. So we are following a 65-year-old woman, I think. She has an illness, she is retired, and she ends up living with the Crouches family. And the Crouches family, we end up following the mom in that family. And basically there's secrets upon secrets, and Jude, the 65-year-old woman, finds out one of the secrets and hence starts investigating. And yeah, that's basically what it's about. A family that has a lot of secrets. Jude, the old lady that lives with them, finds out something and tries to investigate further. I gave this book a 2.5. This was a really bad book. I didn't like it. First off, Jude, which is the main character, and Bonnie, which is the mom, I couldn't have cared less what happened to either of them. I really did not care. The secret was just so ridiculous and stupid. I'm gonna say it. It was stupid. And towards the end of the book, I was just questioning why this book was even written. Like, what was the point of the book? The ending was bad. The middle was bad. The start was bad. I don't know. I just didn't enjoy it. I guess at one point I was sort of invested in a few things, I guess, but not to the point where I would recommend it or ever kind of think back on this book. And so it's a 2.5. And it's usually a 2. It's a book that I no longer wanted to read, but I never felt that way. I still wanted to go and finish it up, so that's why I gave it a 2.5. But this book was just not good, so skip it. Just okay. Yeah. Alright, you guys, then we have Grown, and this is by Tiffany D. Jackson, who I believe also wrote Monday's Not Coming, which is a book that I have yet to pick up, but after reading this book, I might not. Okay, that was too much, no. So this was a pick by the Midnight Book Club, the Late Night Book Club, and it's hosted by Noel Gallagher, and I love Noel Gallagher, and so I thought this book was gonna be it, and it was not it. So we are basically following Enchanted, which she's like an aspiring singer and songwriter. She ends up in this competition and meets her idol, I guess. Not really her idol, but just this really famous guy, and he kind of takes her under his wing and decides to go on tour with him. And he promises a lot of things, like writing an album with her, recording with her, and she gets into this inappropriate relationship with him because I believe she's only like 16 or 17 and he's like 29, and it's just a book showing how this young girl gets mistreated and abused by this grown man, which is a very difficult subject to talk about, and it's something that is obviously happening, and so I thought that the idea of the book was really awesome. A few things that I wasn't on board with was that everything happened so quickly, from her being discovered to her being on tour, just happened within a matter of pages, and I just thought, like, okay, where did this come from? It just happened too soon. So that was one thing. Another thing, which is not really a problem of the book but more of a problem with me, is that I couldn't really relate to the book because I come from a very strict family,
And so some of the things that she was allowed to do, me thinking back, my 16-year-old self, I would have never been allowed to do that. So like touring with the guy, my mom would have never gone down without, even if I was super talented, it didn't matter. I was not even allowed to go to sleepovers, but I digress. So some of the things I felt like were not relatable, especially because I'm older now. So some of the things reading it, I'm like, okay, well, I could have never done that because my mom would have slapped me silly. So that's one thing, which is, again, it's not a problem with the book, it's a problem within myself, you know. So that's that. Something that I wasn't really keen about was it was really I watched the R. Kelly documentary. Where did I watch it? I think I watched it on Netflix, right? Yeah. And at one point it almost seemed like I was just watching the documentary again, and it wasn't pretty unique about the things. So it almost seemed as it was like a replica of it. That was one thing. And then another thing was a situation that happened with a friend of hers that I thought was really unnecessary. Like, I thought it was really unnecessary. And if you guys have read this book, please let me know what you guys think of that, because I would love to discuss that further, because I don't get the point of why that storyline was added into the book. Like, I just don't see the reason behind it. I might do a separate book video on it, because I would love to know you guys' thoughts on that. But overall, I gave it a 3.5. I did enjoy it. I think I read it all in like one sitting, because it was really fast paced, and I was really interested in what was happening. But for it being unique and really being different from all the stories that we've already seen, you know, on documentaries and already happening in real life, it wasn't that surprising. And like I said, there was a few things that I had a few problems with it, so we will leave it at that. But let's acknowledge how beautiful this cover is, because it's gorgeous. So the next book that I grabbed was Well Met by Jen DeLuca, and this is an adult romance, and I ended up really enjoying it. So we're following Emily, who moves into the town where her sister lives, because her sister has been in a car accident, and she moves into the town in order to help her sister and take care of her, I think her 14-year-old niece, I believe. And her niece really wants to participate in this Renaissance fair, and so Emily has to volunteer in order for the niece to participate. And while she's at the fair, she meets the English teacher, which is Simon, and he is really like annoying at first and very like put off by everything and just stuck up, I guess you can say. And as they go into the Renaissance fair and everybody goes into character, he becomes this very like sexy pirate, and his whole attitude shifts and he starts flirting with her, and it's so cute, it's so adorable. I gave it a 4.5, almost a 5. I loved it. I have no issues with it. I thought it was amazing. I think it also deals with really important subjects. You know, it deals with her not having graduated college and feeling inferior to everybody else because of that, and I thought that was a really important subject that was talked about in a well-written way, I guess. And then it also deals a lot with grief in Simon's part, and I also thought that that was really good, and it was a really well representation of what, you know, losing a brother is like. And as you guys have known, like, I've been through that, and I think that how it was talked about it was perfect. It's what it feels like. So I was really able to relate to the book, and I really enjoyed it, and I also read it in like one sitting because I loved it, and I think it's one of my favorite romances that I've read, and it's also a little bit steamy, which was great. It was not overly much, it was just like the perfect steaminess, and it was really good. So I would definitely recommend it. After reading Well Met, I was still kind of in the romance kick, and so I grabbed Tweet and Cute by Emma Lord, and this was just extremely cute. I really enjoyed it. It was more of a YA romance, and it deals with two competitive like burger places, like restaurants, like diners type of situation. And so we have the girl, which her name is Pepper, and she is basically the daughter of this huge like a huge burger chain or diner chain. And then we are following Jack, who is the son of a owner of it, like a local diner, so a very small local diner. And so they go head to head because apparently Piper's company, or her mom's company, took Jack's company's recipe, and so they go like head to head on Twitter, and then they figure out they're like rivals, and they like a friendship ensues, but it's also kind of like a rivalry. Then unbeknownst to them, they're also chatting on this anonymous app, and they kind of like each other, but they don't know the identities of each other. So it's really cute because you see them flirting over here on the app, and then you see them arguing but also falling in love, and so it's just really cute. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I will say though that their parents are so immature in this book. It's ridiculous. It almost seemed as if Pepper and Jack were the adults in the family and their parents were the teenagers, because it was ridiculous. At one point I was like, seriously, these parents need counseling or something. But it was really cute and I enjoyed it. And they're also in the swim team, which I thought was amazing because I used to swim a lot in high school, so it was very relatable. And yeah. Alright, something that I was actually not in my TBR, I actually just ended up getting it and really wanted to read, was The One by John Marrs. And this book was so good. I'm just gonna go out and say it. It was a 5 out of 5. I absolutely recommend it. I think it's one of my favorite books so far of the year. And it deals with such an interesting topic. It's basically about sending in your DNA to get tested, and then they find your perfect match. And by your perfect match, it means like your soulmate, like the other person in the world that literally was made just for you. That's what it deals with. And it could be a female, it could be a male, it could be someone that has been married already, it can be someone that's like 90 years old. It doesn't matter, okay? Like age, gender, race, nothing matters, okay? And it's so interesting because I believe we're following 5 different characters as they are all kind of figuring out who their match is, and their matches might even be married. It's crazy. So interesting. I'm not going to say much about every character because I feel like it's something that you guys need to figure out while you're reading. But I loved it. I love just the idea of it, and my favorite character was Christopher. And if you guys have read this book, you probably know who Christopher is, and why did I like him so much? I don't know, but I thought he was hilarious, and I thought how ridiculous it was that I was just so like in love with his story. But it was like I felt bad at the same time, like I shouldn't liked him as much as I did, but he was my favorite character. Also, I really did like Nick at the same time. Anyway, this was amazing. I might do a separate video just talking about John Marrs books because I am reading them right now, most of them, so I'm really excited about that. So 5 out of 5. It says a shock on every other page. Yes. And it was also so interesting that I was so invested in every single one of the stories. And also something that I really liked was that the chapters were very short. How many paragraphs does it have? How many pages, sorry. It has like 440 pages, and I read this pretty quickly, so loved it. Best book of the month. Alright, and last but not least, the last book I read. Sorry, there's like stuff flying. Before I show you guys the last book I read, I do want to say that I think if I had not read this book, then I would have read more books, or I would have read, you know, about like 2 more books. Most of the books I read are around 350 pages to like 400, and it usually, if a book is really, really good, it takes me about 2 days to finish it. 2 or 3 days, give or take. This book had 350 pages as well, and it took me a whole entire week. I think I started it on a Friday night, and I didn't end up finishing until Thursday. And that's never good. It almost got me into a reading slump, and I was just, sorry, my sister is calling me. So that's not good, and I kind of feel bad about it, because I know there is a lot of people here on BookTube that recommends this book, and I bought it because of BookTube, and it's just, I don't know. So let's just go ahead, and that is The Black Kids by Christina Hammonds Reed. First, let's do acknowledge how beautiful the cover is, but what's inside is not so great. I had a lot of issues with this book. First of all, it's completely misleading. So the way that it says, it's like we're following Ashley, and she's a, you know, pretty well off teenager. You know, her family's pretty well off, they're educated, they have money, they have a nice house in a good neighborhood, and she goes essentially to a private expensive school, high school. And the way that this is pitched, I think, for us as readers, is that we're following the 1992 riots that happened because of the Rodney King trials. So the way that it's pitched is that because the riots start happening, then she's not seen as this popular girl anymore. She is seen as a black kid, you know, another black girl in the school. That's never what happens in this book. And so I initially thought that that's what I was getting myself into. I was like, okay, so we're gonna follow this like kind of perfect life, and then all of a sudden this kind of happens, and it really disrupts things in her life. And that wasn't the case with the book. I think my biggest issue with this book was her, Ashley. Because there were really important things happening in the book, emotionally draining things that you were like, I can't believe this is even happening. And her reaction towards those things were like, well, yeah, it's bad, but let me focus on what's happening with my friendship over here, because whatever's happening in my friendship is bad as well. And you're like, excuse me, your friendship does not matter to me whatsoever right now. She was just very emotionless. She was very detached to what was happening, and I understand in the beginning that's how it's supposed to be, because she is so kind of in her own little bubble and she doesn't understand what's happening. But at one point where things are happening right in front of your face, you need to show some kind of emotion, especially when it's happening like towards your family. You know, I know her uncle gets involved in a lot of things because of the riots, and her sister as well, and she's just completely detached from everything. And I was just really surprised, and I was like 60 pages out from finishing it, and I even told my sister, I was like, I don't even think I can finish it, because so many things that in the beginning of the book were extremely important, like her relationship with this boy, who was extremely, like, it was the focus of the book. It never got resolved. We never got a true ending from it. It was just kind of, yeah, and that happened. So you're saying that I've read 300 pages of this and I got no answer whatsoever. I just didn't like her as a character. I do know that she has this one basketball friend. His name, I believe, is LaShawn, and I think if we had followed his perspective, it would have been so much more, like it would have been more important. It would have touched important issues that I think this book didn't do. And so it almost makes me not want to trust YouTube anymore, or BookTube, because this book has such good ratings and I thought it was not good whatsoever. I almost DNF'd it. But I powered through it and I finished it, and it still has not changed my mind. I still think it's not a good book. So I only gave it a 2. Would have given it less, but I don't tend to give books less than a 2 because I just don't think that's fair. Because someone did put a lot of work into it, but it felt really flat, and I think that it didn't do as much justice as it could have done with such an important topic and such an important time line. So skip this, you guys. Alright, you guys, and that is pretty much it for today's video. I know I had some like pretty harsh, let me fix this a little bit. I know I had a few like harsh reviews with certain books, but it's just my opinion and we can all have different opinions. I know, I mean, maybe Black Kids or maybe The Wrong Family, it's probably one of your favorites and it's just something that I didn't like. So we just all have different taste in books, and it was an unfortunate month for me. I only ended up liking 3 of the books I read, and then the other 4 were just not really good. But it's okay, because that's what reading is all about. You know, getting books that you thought you were gonna like and then just didn't enjoy. Anyways, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope I didn't hurt your feelings. I always feel bad about like rating a book really lower than a 3, because I'm like, this book is probably someone's favorite, but this is what we have. So I really do hope you guys enjoy this video. Say goodbye to my hair because I'm chopping it off, I think. If the next video I don't have shorter hair, like at least this much, then I decided not to cut it. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on my next video.